Morning everyone, Kathi LaPoint, Pioneer Field Agronomist for Front Range in Northeast Colorado. And it's the end of August. This coming weekend is Labor Day weekend, and I'm out here staging some silage. So this hybrid is P1828 Chrome. There's quite a bit of it here along the Front Range. We're here in Eaton today, and so we're going to talk about how to stage silage. So this time of year, and typically when I'm staging silage, the first thing that I'm looking at is kernel maturity. Plant health is really good here down to the bottom of the plant in this field, so I'm not super concerned about dry matter outpacing kernel maturity. We should have plenty of time to put starch into that kernel to about half starch or so that we can maximize tonnage in this field and have dry matter where we want it to be. So how do we look at kernel maturity to determine that? So if I split an ear open and I show you the tip side of this ear, I am looking for where starch line is from top of the kernel moving down toward the cob. So when we talk about starch accumulation and we say half starch, we're looking for a starch line that from the top of the kernel is about halfway there. It can be a little bit deceiving when you first look at a starch line because you can look at that corn and think, oh, there's not a whole lot of starch there. You split that kernel open and there might be more than you think. So it's a couple different methods for figuring out where that true starch line is at. Some guys will bite on a kernel and find where it really gets soft. You can take your thumbnail or a pinhead and start at the top of that kernel and push until you get to something soft. Or especially for visual purposes, I'll go ahead and split a kernel lengthwise. I don't recommend doing this if you have shaky hands or a dull knife, by the way, but if you split this kernel open, let's see if I get a good split here, you can look for a starch line on this plant. In this instance, and I'll show this to you in a second here, we don't have even really a starch cap here. We're starting to see some baby dents, but if you look at this kernel, you're looking for starch line that's moving from the top down, and you'll see a harder, clearer, darker orange starch as that moves down the plant. Issue here, not really an issue, it's just timing related. You can start to see some beginning dents here, but until you really start to see more of a dent, you're not going to find much of a starch cap. Sometimes 1828 doesn't dent dramatically, and so you can have more starch there than you initially think you would, so make sure to always still check it, even if the dent is pretty light. But that's always the first thing that I'm looking for when I'm looking at kernel maturity for staging silage. Once we get to half starch line here in the west, that's usually when we start going, because by the time we finish chopping all the acres, our moistures are going to be a little bit on the drier side. So, you know, back east and toward the north, sometimes they'll wait till 3/4 starch. Out here, we're more on the half starch side. So if you want a tool that's going to help you stage your silage better, Pioneer does have a tool that they just came out with a couple years ago, and it's a silage staging tool. So what happens, you enroll the acres and it looks at your plant date and your hybrids and then uses that to estimate half starch line, pulling all of the local weather station data that's in the system and then sending you a weekly email report saying this is when that silage looks like it's going to be ready. So super helpful if you're a custom chopping crew and you want to see what acres are looking like and kind of get things in order. But I always, of course, recommend ground truthing that as well. But if you're looking for a helpful tool, we'll put some screenshots in this video to show you what that silage staging tool looks like. And if you're interested, reach out to your local Pioneer rep or your local agronomist, and we're happy to get out in the field, stage some silage with you. And with that, hope everyone has a safe harvest.
That concludes this Pioneer Agronomy video podcast. Visit our page on pioneer.com and follow us on Twitter and Facebook for more agronomy insights.